Hi, I'm Dr. Bojack from Atlantic Chiropractic in Stoneham, Mass, your Polak posture doc. Today we're going to go over scar tissue or scar tissue adhesions or adhesions that they're often labeled as. This video is going to discuss bad scar tissue. Okay, so again, let's make that distinct. This video is discussing bad scar tissue. It's what we don't want. Okay. Also, I just want to remind you, we love doing these videos, and I really appreciate a little love back. And if you could hit subscribe on our video tube, that'd be fantastic. I'd really appreciate it. Okay. So first, we're going to look at joints. Okay, because that's where this happens, is in joints. So there's got to be motion and mobility in these joints, and what I'm looking at particularly is the spinal joint. Okay, so there's normal motion and mobility in the joint, just like there's normal motion and mobility in your wrist, normal motion and mobility in your elbow, normal motion and mobility in your shoulder. Okay, now, okay, we get in a collision or an injury, right? Whether we get whacked, okay, blindsided by what? Hockey check, okay, or we fall off the stool and we roll on our shoulder, okay, or we're in our car driving and somebody whacks us from behind, okay, or we're simply walking on the ice and we slip and our feet go up and we land flat on our pelvis or our butt, okay. So these traumas you can't control, right? And as a consequence, those joints move from a normal mostly into an abnormal position or an extreme position. And then they're traumatized. Okay? So first we have to have a force, which is the injury. Okay? Whether that be a actual trauma, okay, or a fall, or a slip, or a car accident, or a trip down the stairs, okay, or running into somebody, or maybe you overexert yourself. Maybe you're going to serve a tennis ball and you just overreach and overextend yourself, and your muscles aren't warmed up, and it traumatizes this joint and it goes into a hyperextension, okay? So regardless, okay, this spine or this joint, and we're looking at the spinal joint, moves into an abnormal position. So the body, right, always working what? For you, this intelligence, right, says this joint's been traumatized. Okay? And as far as it's concerned, it's not in a stable position. And because it's not in a stable position, the body already knows it's got to stabilize this. And how does it happen? So what it does is it lays down scar tissue adhesions to the joint. As you can see, what we should see is nice linear lines. That's what we should have. Okay, so that's good scar tissue. But since we've been traumatized, and because that joint can't produce an adequate electrical conversation or message or instruction, that scar tissue lays down in haphazard squiggles. Okay? And because of that, the actual tissue lays down in squiggles, and then scar tissue comes in here to what? Fill those squiggles to try to make it more stabilized. Okay? So your scar tissue is literally clumps of collagen. So it's tissue, but it's abnormal tissue. And it's what? It's weaker, less elastic, right? Weaker, less elastic, and more sensitive in irritation. Okay? So again, this is in the healing process, creates poorly functional and poorly adapting tissue But the reason why it's doing that is to try to what? Immobilize during regeneration. So again, remember what we said, right? Your intelligence, meaning yours individually, and your intelligence is what? Specific and distinct for you. It knows exactly what your physical stresses, mental stresses, emotional stresses, chemical stresses are, and it's always present time conscious, right? So meaning it's always aware of what's going on, whether you're washing the floor or whether you're doing computer work or whether you're playing golf. It always is in contact with regards to what is going on present time. It lays down in abnormal squiggles, right? It forms clogs or clumps of scar tissue that, just like we said, are weaker, okay, less elastic, and more sensitive. Okay? So now that's what you got in this joint. Okay? So it's almost, these adhesions are literally almost like glue. Okay? They're trying to glue that joint together. Okay? So, we got that joint, and we got adhesions forming on it. So what do you think is going to happen for our range of motion? You think it's going to increase, or you think it's going to decrease? You're right, it's going to decrease. Okay? Now, you're going to go through motion and mobility and movement in that joint, and you're probably going to create some movement in some of those adhesions. So you're going to probably break up some of the adhesions. But in normal circumstances, and especially the longer that joint sits in an unstable and a loss of mobility and motion, it's going to create more and more scar tissue. It's going to become more and more of a problem. Okay? So then when you start moving, what do you got, right? You got only 60% of that motion, or only 70% of that motion. Okay? So what do you say? You go into the gym and you say, you know what, I'm going to go work it out. That's a great thought. And I commend you for that. But you're only going to move it through that, 60 or 70% of motion. Because as far as that joint's concerned, that's its range of motion. And it's inhibited, that 30% is inhibited because of what? This scar tissue or those adhesions. So that's going to give you that limited motion. And the longer it sits in there, the longer it's going to accumulate and the more of a collagen and osseous state it's going to become. So it's going to be more and more difficult to clear that joint out. And like I said, right, you can't clear it out with just normal ranges of motion and normal mechanics. So, what's going to literally clear that joint out is motion, okay? But that motion's got to be a specific motion, right? In a specific line to the specific movement of that joint, so that that joint can open up. And literally what's going to happen is this squiggly tissue is going to microtear. Okay, so it's going to literally tear apart. And when it tears apart, that's when you're going to get motion and mobility. Poor healed soft tissue is tissue, but it's abnormal tissue. It's what? It's weaker, it's less elastic, it's more sensitive, it creates more exacerbations and irritations, okay, or flare-ups. It varies that functional capacity so it doesn't work like it used to, and it causes future irritation and pain. So that's the nemesis or the enemy of a lot of problems that result in joint irritation. And until you clear that scar tissue or literally micro tear that scar tissue up, you're not going to reestablish the full range of motion and mobility in that joint. So with an adjustment, the adjustment's going to open up the joint, clear out that last 30% of scar tissue or those collagen lumps or that glue, so you do have that full range of motion in the joint. You want to make sure you have the nice linear fibers, which is why, right, a lot of sports figures who get shoulder surgeries or knee surgeries, what do? As soon as they get out of that surgical unit, okay, they put them on an actual machine that starts moving that joint. And the motion of mobility in the joint stimulates the electrical conversation, which creates a nice positive or good scar tissue, which is nice linear patterns. And we're going to show you that on our next clip. So again, I'm trying to distinguish for you watching what good scar tissue, bad scar tissue, and the distinctions between one and the other. If you have any questions, don't hesitate to email us or give us a call. Again, we'd love to check you out for any kind of mechanical dysfunctions, postural irritations. And again, right, these postural patterns have been sitting in there. There's no question you got scar tissue in there. Because again, your body's made so much compensation as far as it's concerned, right? This rounded shoulders has been in there so long, as far as it's concerned, it's normal, right? Your head being forward, your shoulders being forward, that's normal. Head back, shoulders back, that's abnormal. So again, right? Just like going to the gym, it's not working out once that's going to get you in shape. You guys have been sitting on these computers for years, developing these patterns for years. Don't expect to come in and get one adjustment and you're all fine and dandy. Your head's back, your shoulders back, and your body's saying, "Oh, no problem, happy days." It's not happening. It took a good period of time to get in there. It's going to take a period of time to get out of there. Okay? Thank you for giving us the time and the attention to listen. Have a wonderful Wednesday. Talk to you soon. Bye-bye.